All right. I think we're right. All right, how y'all doing? I'm Marcus Carey, and thanks. Thanks. I feel like I'm in a support group, and I'm Marcus Carey. And I'm a hacker.
Hi, Marcus.
So anyway, so I'm gonna cover the talk. The talk is called Fail in Depth. What I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna go through defense in depth, and I'm gonna look at it from a logical manner as far as I see it. And there's probably gonna be stuff wrong in here, so don't totally hate me if it is. Bruce Potter, y'all probably know Bruce, the founder of ShmooCon. He has this epic rant where he says, "Don't believe anything I say." And so don't believe anything I say. Just, take for what it's worth. And hopefully you can apply some of it to your situation. I like doing defensive talks. I do hack a lot, but I like talking about defense. So this is a pretty cool thing that Banksy posted on the the Banksy team. There are 2 rules for success: never reveal everything you know. So I totally don't obey that. I pretty much tell everybody everything I know. I had a class last night. A couple of people in here went to my class last night. I'm like really an enthusiast on just telling people everything I know. That's how I roll. So every time I get a mic in front of me, I want to bust a freestyle like the Pope here, but I don't. Because cybersecurity is serious business, right? And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce myself, tell a little bit about myself. One of the things about public speaking is the first thing you must do is establish credibility. So I'm going to just go over how I came to what I am. So this is going to be people that attended my class last night. A little bit of rehash, so I'm trying to go through it real quick. So when I was 18 years old, I was a country boy. Country is all outdoors. I feel very comfortable here in South Carolina. This is a pretty country place. I love it. So I joined the U.S. Navy, and I became a crypto guy, cryptography. During that, I didn't know this when I went in because the recruiter couldn't tell me what I did. He didn't know anything about what CTs did. But I ended up essentially working for NSA for 8.5 years. During that time, I did some really cool stuff, set up some of the first, a lot of IDSs around Fort Meade, or, the NSA's network. I also did work at Defense Intelligence Agency. And one of the coolest places I worked at was at DC3. DC3 is the Defense Cybercrime Center. They do a lot of investigations. I taught a lot of people how to do investigations. Worked for CSC, big government contractor. And one of the funniest things I did, I worked at CMS in Baltimore. Baltimore, like the latest, that latest Die Hard where they had the fire cell thing and they had the Apple guy in it. That was actually that data center. I protected that data center too. I was one of the top security dudes there. After all this defensive work, I went to Rapid7. I did a little bit of I did some community related stuff there. I also wrote some Metasploit stuff that's pretty cool. And if you follow me on Twitter, if you know me on Twitter, I'm always making fun of a lot of people because I think people take stuff too serious. So this is what most people approach to security is. But since I'm a dumb old country boy, I like to tone everything down so I can actually consume it myself. And so this right here, this is an old school bicycle. Even though it's wooden, it's not too much different from any other bicycle. And so that's my approach to information security. And I know you've seen some other talks today. Security hasn't changed that much. The same things we saw 10 years ago, we're seeing today. And that's just the facts. So, if that bicycle could support me, I could probably ride it. And I can ride any bicycle. Just don't bring any of those little 2-wheel things that Chris is riding around here with, and I'll be good to go. I tried to step on the thing, almost killed myself. So the big thing is information wants to be free, just like water wants to pull and collect. I totally believe information wants to be free. And there's like some kind of, heck, it might even be biblical. It talks about whatever is done in dark will come to light. So whatever data you have on your network, whatever emails that you don't want nobody to find out about, that stuff's going to be public one day. And so something I was talking about last night in my course that I taught is I talk about this intrusion methodology. And dang, that kind of sucks for viewing it, but dang, that's terrible colors. All right, up here, this is reconnaissance. This is an attack. This is entrenchment. And over here is abuse. And this cycle continues throughout an organization. I'll be posting my slides so you'll probably be able to see a better view of this. But this whole intrusion methodology is a continuation, and it goes on all the time. So even when somebody gets to this entrenchment phase, they start recon there, and they launch more attacks and all that stuff. So this is the way I explain this. Also, I'm an old school dude. I started my first hardcore internet networking with CCNA back in the day, Cisco Certified Network Associate or something like that. And so what CCNA built on is it built on the OSI model. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unpack the OSI model and talk about attacks, because I don't see a lot of people talking about this, and this is how I'm going to do it. Let's talk about physical layer attacks, and physical being anything of that nature. And this is what people fail to do. So if you just look at the OSI model and walk through it, you can see what people fail to do. So first thing, like, is a network closet. Like, how many of you walk by network closets all day and see them wide open? I know I do. You know, so funny thing, I know this guy, let's call him Bob, that is empty network closet. Guy just went and plugged in Wi-Fi, hotspot, and now he has free internet for a corporate building. Funny enough. And nobody ever checked it. The closet is locked now, but the Wi-Fi still is running, and it's in there. It's probably going to run forever. So,
damn it, Bob.
Yeah. The lockpicking piece. I really love lockpicking because it's practical applications. Funny thing about lockpicking is my son. Some of you may know him. He's really good at software engineering. He's 20 now. He works for Rapid7. He moved to Belfast. But my son, I got him involved in lock picking when he was like 14 years old, and so he got really good at picking locks. So one night he was picking all these locks. He'd rather pick locks than do homework. So I was like, all right, cool. What I'm going to do? He was sitting in his room in his underwear picking locks. He loved locks, and so I was like, dang man, I got something for you. Follow me. So I locked him in our garage outside our house, and I told him, hey. You can pick your way back into the door, or you can walk outside to the street in the garage, and you can walk back around. The front door is open. so he stayed in the garage. 5 minutes later, he turned the lock and he walked back in. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And he said, Dad, did you open it for me? I'm like, nope, I didn't. So he went on to do some pretty cool stuff. He's a programmer. He didn't go to college. He hated school. And he was in work for Rapid7 full-time since he was 17. So he's kind of a beast. So, but the lock-picking piece from a physical aspect, that actually teaches us a lot. We have an office in Austin. I installed a cipher lock the other day, and the first thing I did was try to circumvent the lock. I ended up shimming the lock right after I installed it. And so for a normal person, normal people don't think that way. Normal people put a lock in place, and they just go. So I was determined I'm going to circumvent this lock. So I ended up having to go back to Lowe's and buying some more parts. I bought this little thing to keep it from being easily shimmed. I bought a deadbolt because thinking like an attacker, that's part of what we do. And so fiber cuts, that's something we're never going to be able to. That happens all the time, especially back in the day. I remember that used to happen all the time. Network taps. People, like I said, that network closet that Bob put a Wi-Fi hotspot in, Bob could have put a network tap in there and could have been stealing all the traffic. So, and here's a mandatory lock fail right here.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. So okay, let's go to the data link layer real quick. There's traffic sniffing that can happen at that. You can install a physical tap, and then you can start sniffing traffic. All the slides will be available too. So MAC spoofing, that's a popular technique, especially Wi-Fi and all that stuff. So these are things you have to think about and defend, right? And broadcast storm, you can easily disrupt the network by plugging in the switch, plugging in into two different things, that whole network's done, right? And you can jam frequencies as far as you can jam, you can intercept stuff. So there's all kind of things. And so what I like to do is I like to think about this in a logical manner. So these things are more, if somebody wants to disrupt you, these are the logical things that they could do at certain levels. Some of these things you can't even detect, until you walk into that network closet and like, dang, who put this bridge here, So this is my representation of a broadcast storm. What? Y'all got the same slide again? Okay, cool. I have duplicates, forgive me. All right, so network layer attacks, there's like IP spoofing. You know what's cool about this? Like, anybody ever like did IP spoofing and all that stuff? The problem with spoofing IP source addresses is the traffic doesn't normally route back to you. But the cool thing is you can spoof a source IP address and you still can change something on an opposite network. Sometimes you don't even have to get the packet back. You can just send the traffic and off it goes, right? So there's things like that. There's routing manipulation. There's been several cases where all of a sudden all the traffic on the internet was getting routed through China or something like that. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Nothing happened there. And there's ICMP related type attacks now. I heard somebody just release a new tool for ICMP tunneling and stuff. So these are the kind of things that can happen at that layer. And you go to transport layer attack. You can do SYN flooding, connect scanning, and some of these aren't attacks per se, but they're definitely tools and things that people fail to prevent and fail to even pay attention to. And sometimes there's also possibly session hijacking. There are session layer attacks. So I said last night, it's funny. I like being controversial. So last night I was like, I don't believe session doesn't exist, right? And so somebody pointed out to me, hey, what about cookies and all that stuff? That keeps some kind of session state. I'm like, sure, I'll add it to my slides then. And so and the guys who were in the class last night probably remember me talking about that. And also like token stealing. So I would say like, okay, those are session related, and perhaps people can do stuff at those levels, right? So what I'm saying here is you see that like when people think about security, I don't know if they're thinking about it in a logical methodology like this. And so what I'm trying to do here is just paint a picture like, boom, this is things that can happen at each level. Presentation layer attacks. So image rendering, right? Like there's like a lot of people, if you guys do exploit dev, a lot of people are trying to shove big images, a bunch of crap and create some kind of overflow or something. That's what a lot of exploit devs do. That's what all this people do, fuzzing and all that stuff. And people are doing this in an automated fashion. There's like Flash and things like that are presenting data, MP3 players and stuff like that are thing. And the only thing you can do really is, only thing you can do about that is patch, right? So everybody gets a patch for all that stuff. There's also application-specific stuff. Walking through the OSI model, continuing it. So you have Java-related stuff. That's another big thing. So basically that's just how computers work. I'm passing packets, passing data. Oh, boom! It goes all the way up to Java, and you could exploit Java DNS reflection, which is interesting because the Java piece is usually on a client side. As far as like a client side, a browser browses or try to load some kind of Java. But then like you have the DNS reflection attack, which usually servers sitting on the internet are susceptible to. But it's still an application level protocol. Slow layers, that affects web servers or whatnot, stuff like that, like DDoS type stuff. So the only thing you can do about those kind of things is you can just log all the things. And just,
That's a lot of logs.
Yeah, that's a lot of logs. So now that covers a little bit of ground here because we're talking about, that's like the OSI model, right? And so for each one of those, and I'll offer a little bit of advice on each one of those things, but just looking through it plain and simple, what does security entail? Security kind of entails protecting, protecting all that stuff. So if you're just worried about, web app security, which it would be like an application layer, right? but you're not focusing on your network closet being totally open and people can sniff anything off your network anyway and steal everything, then you're failing. So we kind of get, in information security, what we do is we have squirrel dog versus squirrel syndrome, where every time a squirrel pop up, oh, it's new shiny thing, let's look at that. But to have a comprehensive security program, you have to excel at all layers of the OSI model. So, speaking of that, this is my boy here, my boy Ed. He's the authority on all internet security right now. Everybody believes everything this guy says. So the funny thing about him is if you follow me, I do talk about validating personnel all the time. In validating personnel, people can be your weakest link from all kind of ways. It could be somebody that steals your secrets, but what if you have an operator in your SOC that absolutely, for lack of a better word, sucks? What if is that person insider threat? This person is terrible at their job. I would consider that person a threat to my organization. So I think people need to start having a better way of evaluating those people, and that includes a lot of different things. That even includes stuff like social engineering. So what's funny about social engineering, I love all my social engineers out there that think that that's a full-time job. I don't think it's like a full-time job. I think we all can probably do something related to social engineering. And this is controversial because I know there's whole people dedicated to this kind of stuff. But the thing is, yes, you should definitely be social engineering your people. But again, you have a 7-layer OSI model that you need to be protecting as well. So don't get so focused on one simple thing, right? So I would say social engineer personnel, you have to have mechanisms in place to catch like the Edward Snowdens. And you also have to make sure that the people that are supposed to be applying patches are applying patches, right? What I see a lot in organizations is that there's no, you can do all the scanning, you can use Nessus all day, find some kind of problem, but unless you have a process in place to get that stuff remediated, it's never going to happen. I mean, I know in some situations you can find something a year ago and that still ain't patched now. You probably have something like that in your organization. What's that? Can I get an amen in a congregation? So anyway, everything's cyber here. So I found this gun in HEB local store in Texas, Cyber Squirt. It's a water. This is a water gun, man. But some organizations might buy that, thinking it's some kind of protection is going to give them. I want to shoot this at hackers that's on my network, right? Yeah. So and
Cats, right?
huh? Yeah. So one of the things I do talk about a lot is like validating the products. Just because it says it does something doesn't mean it's going to do it. So just because it says cyber squirt on here doesn't mean it's going to defend attackers. And but I see a lot of products with cool names that do stuff like that. So validate the products. You got to have some way to validate the products. And so I used to do a lot of bake sales when I was at that CMS place. I used to bake off. Whatever. I would bring 3 different vendors in, and we would test it and make sure that we could validate the controls and all that stuff. And 9 times out of 10, none of this stuff really worked. But they were all in the same product. They would have the Gartner certificate, Gartner Magic Quadrant, but it didn't work. I'm like, wow, dude, seriously? So not only the products, but you got to make sure that the process works as well. So does your information security program look anything like this diagram right here?
It's complicated, other people can't figure it out.
Yeah, but it's sad if the own organization can't figure it out. So the processes in many organizations is just not together. It's terrible. So I advocate people doing simulations, doing training, doing adversary simulations, doing penetration testing, but actually allowing the blue team to try to defend against it. And I believe that it has to happen on live networks. It can't happen in some kind of vacuum. You can't go to SANS and learn a lot of stuff at SANS and then come back and try to implement SANS stuff on your network because you don't have the same stuff, right? So you got to know your stuff. You got to know your process. And I say, you shouldn't be envious of somebody else's program. You might go see talks and stuff, and they talk about, oh, this is how we do it at so-and-so place. But I bet you if you went to so-and-so's place, it wouldn't be that smooth, and they're not really doing that. So 9 times out of 10, everybody's in the same boat you are. Everybody's hurting, and you have to do what fits you. That that you can't listen to what these other people say too much. You also have to know when. No, that's not me. It's Fat Joe. Look kind of like me though. He doesn't have an epic beard, so. But this slide, what this represents is people blowing money and losing money, and this is what they call it. The rappers call making it rain. They like shooting money out of the club. Some networks are making it rain though, with their data loss. So you got to be able to, if you see attackers on your network right now doing this, like shooting your credit cards, your money, whatever off the network, you need to understand what's popping with that. So I mean that's DLP, that's all kind of different things. That you need to be monitoring traffic. I advocate full packet captures. You should be able to understand what exactly is going on, because you don't want somebody in Russia or Latvia or India, they making it rain. Dollars off your network right now. Also, you got to be aware of lateral movement. Anybody see this play?
Yeah.
The Miami, it was like they did 8 laterals in the last 4 seconds of the game. Unfortunately, this guy's knees down on this lateral right here, and the referee's totally messed up the play. The referee made like 3 or 4 errors on this one play at the end of the game, right? But the thing is, like, if you're the referee on your network, are you seeing people doing lateral movement all over your network? They throwing laterals, they like high-fiving each other. It looks like, you ever seen, if you ever been to CCDC, the hackers is high-fiving each other and stuff. There's somebody in China and Russia right now doing that on your network. They're like, oh, cool, here's a shell, here. It's hilarious. I mean, I feel so bad when I go to CCDC. But like, damn, would you notice if somebody's like totally owning your network like that? I don't know. So also, you need to be good at doing egress filtering, right? For some reason, most places I go, they're not doing egress filtering. And you're not on camera, but so you can be totally truthful and honest with me. How many of you guys implement egress filtering on your network? Where you at? So we got, I'm going to say, so we got about less than 10% of the room, or around 10% of the room that actively does egress filtering. So of course, if you don't know what egress filtering is blocking outbound communications, right? So I recommend that you do that on almost like they say when I was at Fort Meade, on a need-to-know basis, like a need-to-have access basis. So primarily the only ports that should be going out on your network is 80, 443 from a client, right? And so they shouldn't even be sending an email without hitting a server inside or anything. So I would say like 80 and 443 are the only ports normally that should be like getting out to the internet. For internal communications, there's all kind of other ports, but like I've had friends that went in to do pen testing and incident response, but pen testers will go into a network and they get a shell, but they're like, oh, somebody's already here though, but they beat me here, and they're still in their own FTP. Why do you have FTP open out to the internet on your network? So your network firewall policy outgoing shouldn't look like Swiss cheese. That's why we have Swiss cheese up there. There's also several tunneling methods on getting data out of your network surreptitiously, or whatever you call it. So, I went to the George W. Bush School of Pronouncing stuff, so forgive me. So with this, is DNS tunneling pretty popular? And like so the guys told me last night, there's some kind of ICMP tunneling tool supposedly just got released, I believe. I'm like, there's people that are, you can send stuff out HTTPS, and that's kind of like a form of tunneling because, hey, you can't see it if it's encrypted, right? So what I recommend people do is just like Burp, I recommend breaking SSL, and I know this is blasphemy in the privacy community. I think you should break all SSL internally, and you should have an air gap before you send it back out. How many people are doing it on their network?
You have an appliance that does it.
Huh? You have an appliance to do it?
Yeah.
It's kind of rare though. I mean, not a lot of people. Huh?
I work for a security company, so
Oh, he works for a security company. Who do you work for?
utility.
Utility? So we have like 2 people in the room that are doing that right now. So what that means that in many organizations, people are stealing data like crazy, and you might not be able to detect it at all. So having said that, your treasure could be leaving your network in one of these different protocols that you can't read. There's some email protocols that aren't easy to decipher. And you can correct me if I'm wrong here. When I was working in the government arena, Microsoft, their email protocol was you couldn't decrypt. You couldn't. It was like proprietary. Just some of the pure Microsoft communications from your workstation to the mail server was unreadable. Y'all familiar with that protocol I'm talking about? So is it still that way? Yeah, so you can't even read Microsoft email from I mean, when I was there. So what in attackers, what are they doing? They're going to be exfiltrating data using your email client. They're going to be exfiltrating data using your web browser that's encrypted. So you need to come up with some kind of way to know what's going on. Is that DLP? I mean, I really don't know. I mean, there's tons of solutions that does this, but like I said, on your network, can you tell if somebody's stealing data from your network? And a lot of times the answer to that is a resounding no, nobody can see it. And it's happening every day. You don't want the FBI and Mandiant be the first people to come to your doorstep. The FBI is coming with whatever, and Mandiant is coming with a check that you need to sign. All right, so command and control beaconing. This is another thing where it will require an active network monitoring and all that stuff. And so this is going to have to require you maybe having to be creative, but whatever you need to do is you need to determine what's good and what's bad traffic in your network. The same thing with anybody participate in hunt teams or anything like that. Anybody do that kind of work? Yeah, so the most important thing about a hunt team type situation, I believe, is having some kind of goal bill, right? A goal bill meaning you know every process that's happening on that computer in a normal situation, right? So by knowing that, you can block out like probably 80% of your whole machine. And so then you just focus on what's abnormal, right? And you can also know what processes are generating what, like web calls and stuff like that. Should these processes be doing this? Should these processes be doing that? You need to know that stuff, right? And that all is like, is the traffic good? This is the traffic piece. But also on the system, all the processes are legit. And one thing I definitely advocate, how many people have internal pen test teams? Internal pen test teams? We're getting probably like a 15 to 20% response on that one. So you guys, y'all actively doing these kind of things, trying to do these things to see if y'all can detect it? All right, keep it 100 with me, keep it real. How many people can you say are seeing the traffic on a normal basis based on what your activity? And we got a resounding, okay, cool. Oh, okay, we got one elite commando, two elite commandos in the house. But yeah, so it's kind of like people aren't saying it. We're failing at this, and people have active people testing the systems out. I got a question. Like, anybody want to tell me why is it not working? Can you give me some feedback? And any volunteers? Why are people failing at this?
It's not a priority, honestly.
So first comment is it's not a priority. Money? So money, what does money have to do with it?
Costs a lot of money to have people scanning
Yeah, so is it, okay, so basically that response was, it's a money thing, people can't afford having pen testers do stuff, and they can't afford people responding to pen testers, it's too expensive.
I'd say lack of understanding and also complacency, where people don't think it's gonna happen to them,
Yeah, so lack of understanding, complacency,
especially at the higher ups.
alright, cool.
So I'm a seller, so I see things a little bit differently. But
You a sailor?
Huh?
You a sailor?
Seller.
You
Not a sailor, like-
you a salesman? I thought I had a brother in the house. He's a seller.
So my clients is that some of the stuff that you mentioned here is just too much noise, right? So even if I'm sitting there looking at stuff, most of my clients can't tell good from bad.
Okay.
There's so much junk going on across the board. Clients bring in, so that's it. It's just too much noise.
Isn't that what Target said?
Oh, so he said that's what Target said. He's throwing Target under the bus, people. So he's saying it's too much noise. I'm saying, like, they don't know the difference between good traffic and bad traffic. What kind of stuff you sell?
Dell Secure Works.
Okay, cool. He's a seller for Dell Secure Works, people. So, but yeah, so, and also, like, anything that a pen tester can do, I would recommend your own staff be able to do those exact same things. Big picture is you can't afford, some people are mandated to do external pen tests, but I would be able to own anything, whatever he can do, and I would put that stuff out of scope for the pen test. I would be able to do that, and you can definitely negotiate that. Be able to do anything they can do. That means I don't want you to give me this handout. I don't want you to do this. We know about this issue. We know. That's how you should manage your pen test. Somebody gonna come in there, run a bunch of automated stuff. And like, all right, cool. Give me my money. So some way you have to identify your blind spots on the network. And so this is the classical car blind spot. Like you can't see out of each windows. Like last night I was riding with DMZ. Y'all know DMZ? Y'all know DMZ car? Truck? He got an old school Volkswagen. I felt like I was like old school Scooby-Doo joint, right? I felt like I was on a safari in the Serengeti or something going through the streets of Charleston last night. And I don't know how he would see that car, because like it's funny, like each car you get in, and this is what I talk about. Each car you get in, it has different blind spots, right? So I remember when I used to drive a minivan. I got 4 kids, so we had to get a minivan when the younger. But I got 2 out the house now. But every man hates getting that minivan, But I had to buckle in to get me a minivan. So I had to get me that little mirrors on the side of the minivan so I could see out. How many minivan driving men around here? Sucks, don't it, bro? So just like every car you get, like every network is different, right? Again, like just because you did something at your last place don't mean it's going to work there. So you got to understand what those blind spots are, what's important. First of all, like what's important, where's my treasure at, and how am I going to configure my network, and how am I going to put my controls in place to see those blind spots. Because at the end of the day, only you can prevent forest fires and security breaches. So that I went pretty quick there, but I'm open for questions, and I would like to keep the dialogue going for a little bit. Any questions? Go ahead.
Something I work on the defense side as far as defending the network, and one of the things that I hear a lot is, we gotta fix everything, and the hacker only has to find one thing, to get in. Problem is they end up finding multiple, right? But could you, give your opinion on that from the hacker side, I guess?
Oh yeah.
Side.
Yeah.
He's finding more than just one, or you only have to knock over one to then find more.
Yeah. So what you find from an attacker perspective is, and so the question was, or the statement was, when dealing with red team versus blue team, what you run into a lot. Is this my phone? Hold on 1 second. I'm being rude as a mug in here. Sorry about that. All right. So you have this whole blue team versus red team or attacker. Attacker has to be right one time. A blue team member has to be right all the time, right? So there's always multiple ways to get in, for sure. Attackers are human, and they want to find the easiest way to get in, right? And so the first way they're in, they're not going to spend too much more effort. They'll spend more time on doing their back doors, setting up all that stuff, and I call it the system administration piece of an pen test, where you make sure you get as many systems as you can, as many creds as you can, and all that stuff. So they're spending more time on that, and that's what's important. I remember when I first got my shell, the guy who taught me a lot about hacking stuff was Johnny Long. He's a good friend of mine. And so I remember back in the day, I used to get real excited when I got a shell. And he used to like slap me like, hey, dude, who cares about that? There's so much more stuff to do and all that stuff. It kind of reminded me of, so the answer is, attacker only cares about one thing, and then he's trying to entrench himself on the system. Attackers don't get excited on how many different ways they can get into the network. That's something they would probably do that's something they can do after the fact, and I would call that more entrenchment. So, from a blue team perspective, and when I went through the OSI model, it's like, dang, there's so many different ways that I could get on the network. And so what's important about pen testing and having an internal pen test team is the insider threat are going to be able to attack all these different levels up to like, when I was at Fort Meade, dude, it was the craziest thing ever. What's up, brother? How you doing?
Secretary.
I'll take that and put it on reserve here. Thanks. So the craziest thing when I got to Fort Meade, it was the most insecure place I've ever seen in my life. It was crazy because military bases are really, really secure, and we're talking around before 9/11, around 1998. Because like Navy was so serious about security. Navy had some epic security failures. Navy had some epic, we were turning over. We had sailors that were selling data to the Russians and all that stuff. Right, so I was like paranoid when I got to Fort Meade. It was hilarious. And I know some of you Fort Meade guys are going to be watching this, so I love you guys still. But it's a lot tighter now. When I first got there, anybody in the world could walk up to Fort Meade and walk into NSA's lobby. And I was like, oh my God, right? That tripped me out, because in a Navy base, you'd be shot by Marines if you tried to walk up to the dang location. So, and the reason why I'm saying, so basically all that, and I see this cropping up again. I think people totally ignore all the physical. People tend to. There's a very big importance when it comes to doing all the lower level stuff up to the network, the physical and the data links layer stuff. It's really important because most pen tests are either are skewed one way or the other, right? There's typically not any Chinese people that are going to be doing physical pen tests. They're not going to be walking up to anything. They're doing everything. They're fishing. They're doing all that stuff. And at the same time, sometimes I think the physical people that do physical pen tests, I think they go over the top, on what they do. They're doing ridiculous stuff, right? And so there needs to be some kind of balance. But I would say all the physical stuff, and even all the network stuff, your own in-house people should be doing that, whether you call them pen testers or not. And so they should, and don't be thinking too dang exotic. Look for the low-hanging fruit. Do it. Like I broke into I put a new lock in, I broke into the lock, and like, okay, cool, I should go get a deadbolt, because if I'm going overnight, at least, somebody can still kick in the door, but at least they have to kick in the door. Or if I could shim it, it took me, seriously, I was like, okay, cool, the lock's installed, shim it, I'm in. I was depressed, you put a new lock in. And so all right, cool, what can I do to make this a little bit harder? And I think that's what security is about. How can I make it a little bit harder and detect when they get in? And that's what we got to do. I know that was kind of long, but yeah. Any other questions, comments? I'm not going to hold you here any longer. I'm a quick meeting guy. I love it. If I get an hour meeting, I'll get it over in 30 minutes. I'm good all day. All right, so that's it. I appreciate you coming. Nice to meet some of you in person. I know a lot of people online and all that stuff. Thanks for coming to the talk. Appreciate you. Thanks.